The champagne tasted like victory. Han Jun-suk drained his glass, then let a woman whose name he'd already forgotten refill it. The penthouse suite of the Shilla Hotel glittered with Seoul's elite. Models draped over leather couches, executives snorting lines off glass tables, laughter that came with a price tag. Outside, the Han River reflected the city's neon pulse. Inside, Jun-suk held court like the king he'd become. 29 years old, CEO of Hansung Financial Group. Net worth that made politicians nervous. And completely, utterly untouchable, or so he thought. Another bottle, he commanded in Korean, his voice carrying the particular arrogance of a man who'd never heard the word no. A server appeared instantly, bowing so low her forehead nearly touched her knees. He didn't acknowledge her. People like her existed to facilitate his pleasure, nothing more. The woman beside him, Russian model he thought, or Ukrainian, traced her manicured nails down his chest.
"You promised to show me your yacht," she purred in heavily accented English.
Did I? Jun-suk's smile was cold, predatory. I promise a lot of things. His phone buzzed, a text from his head of security. Wife called, asked when you'd be home. He didn't bother responding. Yoon So-rin knew exactly where he was and what he was doing. Their marriage was a contract, nothing more. Her family's political connections for his financial empire. She got the prestige of being Mrs. Han. He got immunity from prosecution for activities that didn't bear close examination. And she'd signed away any right to complain about his extracurricular activities. That was the deal. Jun Sok-si, his CFO, Kim Tae-won, appeared at his elbow. Even drunk, Tae-won looked nervous. Maybe we should discuss the Busan development before. Business hours are over, Jun-suk cut him off, gesturing around the suite. This is celebration. The minister signed the contract. We just secured 800 billion won in government funding. Tonight, we enjoy the spoils. What he didn't say, half that funding would be siphoned through shell companies he controlled. By the time anyone noticed, the money would be laundered through 3 countries and impossible to trace. That's what genius looked like. That's what power felt like. The party raged until dawn. Jun-suk fucked the model, definitely Russian. She'd said something about Moscow, then a PR executive from his own company, then fell asleep surrounded by empty bottles and the sweet, chemical smell of excess. His phone woke him at 11 a.m. 37 missed calls. 20 from his head of security. 15 from his assistant. 2 from his mother. He dialed security first. This better be important. Sir, the man's voice was tight. You need to come home, now. I'm hungover. Whatever it is can wait. Sir, your wife. The man paused. She's gone, and she took everything. The words didn't process immediately. Jun-suk sat up, his head pounding. Around him, bodies still slept off the night's debauchery. What do you mean, gone? The house is empty. She left this morning with moving trucks. Legal documents on the dining table, divorce papers. Already signed. Ice flooded Jun-suk's veins, cutting through the hangover instantly. She can't divorce me. We have an agreement, a contract. You should come home, sir. The drive from Seoul to his estate in Sungbuk-dong took 23 minutes. Every minute, Jun-suk's rage crystallized. How dare she? He'd given her everything, a mansion, unlimited credit, social status that made other women's eyes burn with envy. So what if he fucked other women? That wasn't part of their arrangement. Love wasn't part of their arrangement. His security team waited at the gate, faces grim. The house, a sprawling traditional hanok worth 45 billion won, looked exactly the same from the outside. But when he walked through the doors, the wrongness hit him immediately. Empty spaces where furniture had been. Bare walls where her family's art collection had hung. The silence was absolute, suffocating. On the dining table, centered precisely, sat a stack of documents. Jun-suk picked up the top sheet with trembling hands. His eyes scanned the legal text, but it was the handwritten note beneath that stopped his heart. You always thought you were too powerful to lose anything. You were wrong. That was all. No signature, no explanation, just those 2 sentences that felt like a knife between his ribs. He grabbed his phone, dialed Surin's number. Disconnected. He tried again. The number you have dialed is not in service. Find her, he barked at his head of security. Now. I don't care what it costs. Find my wife. Sir, we've already tried. Her passport's been canceled. Someone with high-level government access did it. Her bank accounts are closed. It's like she vanished. No one just vanishes. Jun-suk's voice was ice. Try harder. But as he stood in the empty house, surrounded by the spaces where a life, however fake, had existed, a cold truth settled over him. Seoul had planned this. Every detail. Every contingency. She'd known he'd try to find her. And she'd made sure he couldn't. Then his phone rang. His assistant, Minji. Sir, I've been trying to reach you. There's a problem. What now? Aaliyah, she's not answering her phone. Her apartment is cleared out. I went there myself, she's gone. The second blow landed harder than the first. Aaliyah Moore, his translator, his executive assistant. The woman who'd stood beside him for 3 years, managing his life with quiet efficiency. Brown skin, sharp eyes, always perfectly professional. The woman he'd never fully noticed because she made herself invisible. And now she'd disappeared too. When did she leave? Sometime last night, maybe early this morning. Her resignation letter came via email at 6 a.m. Very formal. Said she was accepting another position. But sir, Minji's voice dropped. I checked her passport records. She didn't leave the country. Someone blocked her from traveling. The same person who'd blocked Sorin. Someone with power that rivaled his own. Jun-suk sank into a chair, one of the few pieces of furniture Sorin had left, and for the first time in his adult life, felt genuinely afraid. Not of physical danger. He had money, security, connections. But this was different. This was strategic dismantling. Someone knew him well enough to strike where he was most vulnerable, his control. His phone buzzed again, an email from an unknown sender. No subject line, just an attachment. He opened it. Video footage from last night's party. Him with the Russian model. Then the PR executive. Both sexual encounters filmed in crisp, damning detail. But it wasn't just sex. There were snippets of conversation, him laughing about the Busan development deal. Taewon, drunk, explaining how they'd structured the embezzlement. Evidence, enough to destroy everything. The email had no demands, no blackmail request, just the video, time-stamped and dated, with metadata that would hold up in court. A message without words. I can ruin you whenever I want. Jun-seok called the only person he trusted, Park Sang-woo, his fixer, the man who made problems disappear. I need everything you can find on my wife, where she is, who she's talking to, and Aaliyah Moore, my assistant. I need them found, today. I'll start immediately, Sang-woo said. But Jun-seok, if your wife planned this carefully enough to disappear with government help, she's not running, she's attacking. Then I'll strike back. His voice was steel. No one leaves me, no one. But as he hung up, staring at the empty house that suddenly felt like a mausoleum, a whisper of doubt crept in. What if he couldn't win this time? What if the Dragon of Seoul had finally met his match? And what if that match had been living beside him all along, counting his sins, waiting for the perfect moment to burn his world to ash? 3 days earlier. Aaliyah Moore stood in the shadows of Han Jun-suk's office, tablet in hand, and watched him scream at a junior analyst. The boy, he couldn't have been more than 23, trembled as Jun-suk's rage washed over him in waves of cutting Korean. Your incompetence cost us 20 million won, 20 million because you can't read a simple contract clause. I'm sorry, Sejong-nim, the analyst whispered. I'll fix it. Fix it? Jun-suk's laugh was vicious. You can't fix stupidity, you're fired. Security will escort you out. Aaliyah didn't flinch. She'd seen this performance 100 times in 3 years. The analyst would be rehired tomorrow through HR. This was just Jun-suk establishing dominance, reminding everyone who held the power. He glanced at her as the sobbing analyst was led away. What? Your 2 p.m. is here, the minister's office. Fine, Give me 5 minutes. Aliyah nodded and stepped out. In the hallway, she allowed herself a single, shaky breath. 3 years. 3 years of watching him destroy people for sport. 3 years of telling herself it was just a job, just money to send back to her mother in Atlanta, just survival in a foreign country where her brown skin already made her invisible. But it was also 3 years of something else, something she buried so deep she could almost pretend it didn't exist. She loved him, quietly, desperately, in the way you love a knife that cuts you every time you touch it. His brilliance, the way his mind worked 10 steps ahead, the rare moments when his mask slipped and she saw vulnerability beneath. The time he'd stayed up all night helping her with visa paperwork, speaking perfect English and making jokes to ease her anxiety. Those moments were lies, she knew now. Manipulation to keep his best assistant loyal. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Tonight, everything changes. Be ready. Aliyah deleted the message and went back to work. That night, Jun-suk had his party. Aliyah wasn't invited. She was staff, not social circle. But she knew where he'd be, knew what he'd do, and she'd made her choice. She returned to the Han estate at 3 a.m., using her security clearance to enter undetected. The house was dark, empty. Seo-rin had told her the plan, had offered her a choice. Stay loyal to a man who'd never see her as human or help destroy him. It wasn't a difficult decision. Aliyah moved through the house, disconnecting security cameras, uploading malware to the network that would erase her presence. Her background, Georgetown International Relations, NSA internship she'd never listed on her resume, made her far more dangerous than Jun-suk had ever realized. He thought she was just a translator, a pretty face who spoke Korean and English. He had no idea she'd been documenting everything. Every shady deal, every bribe, every affair. She wasn't just his assistant, she was his downfall. In his office, she copied the final files she needed. Financial records, correspondence with corrupt officials, video evidence from his own security system that he'd been too arrogant to properly encrypt. Then she packed her go bag and left. No note, no goodbye. Just the ghost of 3 years vanishing into the Seoul night. As she walked away, she allowed herself one moment of grief for the man she'd imagined he could be, for the love she'd wasted on someone who'd never loved anything but power. Then she wiped her tears, got in the waiting car where Seo-rin sat and said, "Let's burn it all down." Present day. Jun-suk's empire was crumbling. The video from the party had been leaked to 3 major news networks. His face was plastered across every screen in Seoul. Billionaire CEO caught in corruption scandal. Prosecutors raided Hansung Financial. The board called an emergency meeting to discuss his removal. His mother stopped answering his calls. In 72 hours, he'd gone from untouchable to toxic. Park Sung-woo sat across from him in the war room they'd set up, a hotel suite, since the house felt contaminated now. "I found something." "Where is she?" "Not Seo-rin, she's too well protected, but Aliyah." Sung-woo pulled up a photo. She was spotted in Busan. A friend of mine saw her at a cafe. Jun-suk's heart lurched. "Where in Busan?" "I can have a location within the hour." "Get it, and prepare my security team. We're going tonight." Sung-woo frowned. "Is that wise? The media will follow you." "I don't care." Jun-suk stood, his reflection in the window showing a man who hadn't slept in days. Eyes bloodshot, suit wrinkled, the veneer of perfection cracked. "She's the key. Aliyah knows something, and I'm going to make her tell me." But beneath the rage, something else stirred. Fear. Not of Aliyah, but of what he'd feel when he saw her again, when he finally had to face the woman he'd ignored for 3 years, who'd somehow become the only person who mattered. The cafe sat on a quiet street near Gwangali Beach. Through the window, Jun-suk could see her. Aliyah, wearing casual clothes, jeans and a sweater, her natural hair loose instead of the professional bun she always wore. She looked younger, free. He'd brought 2 bodyguards but dismissed them with a gesture. This conversation had to be private. The bell chimed as he entered. Aliyah didn't look up from her book, just said in perfect Korean, I knew you'd find me eventually. You wanted me to. Maybe. She closed the book, met his eyes. God, had she always been this beautiful? Or maybe I just stopped caring if you did. Jun Seok slid into the seat across from her. The cafe owner hovered, nervous, but Aaliyah waved him away. They were alone. Where's my wife? Safe, far from you. This is kidnapping, conspiracy. I'll have you arrested. Aaliyah laughed, and it was the first time he'd heard genuine amusement in her voice. With what evidence? The prosecutors are too busy freezing your assets and investigating your fraud to care about your missing wife. Who, by the way, filed legal divorce papers. She's not missing. She just doesn't want to be found by you. Why? The word came out broken. Why did she leave? We had an agreement. You had an agreement. Seo-rin had a prison sentence. Aaliyah leaned forward. Do you know what it's like to be married to someone who treats you like furniture? Who fucks other women and comes home smelling like them? Who made her feel like she was nothing more than a political prop? She knew what she was signing up for. No, she knew what you told her she was signing up for. But humans aren't contracts, Jun-suk. They bleed, they break, and eventually, they fight back. He wanted to argue, to rage, but sitting across from Aaliyah, seeing the fire in her eyes that he'd never noticed before, something shifted inside him. You helped her. Yes. Why? What did I ever do to you? The question hung in the air. Aaliyah's expression flickered, pain, briefly, before smoothing into neutrality. Nothing. That's exactly the problem. For 3 years, I stood next to you. I knew your schedule better than you did. I knew how you took your coffee. I knew when you were stressed before you did. And you never once saw me as anything but a tool. I paid you well. I didn't want your money. Her voice cracked. I wanted you to see me. The confession landed like a bomb. Jun-suk stared at her, comprehension dawning slowly. You. Loved you? Yeah, past tense. I was stupid enough to fall for a man who's incapable of feeling anything but greed. She stood, but I'm not stupid anymore. Aaliyah, wait! No, we're done. Your empire is collapsing. The prosecutors have everything. Financial records, bribes, the whole network. Seo-rin made sure of it. She's been planning this for 18 months, documenting every crime, every betrayal. I'll rebuild, I always do. Maybe, but you'll do it alone. She picked up her bag. By the way, there's one thing you should know. What? I'm not just Seo-rin's ally, I'm the witness. I've agreed to testify against you in exchange for immunity. Everything I saw in 3 years, every shady deal, every bribe, I'm giving it to the prosecution. The color drained from Jun Seok's face. You wouldn't. Your visa, your work permits, you'd be deported. I have immunity and a visa extension. Turns out the Korean government really wants to nail you. She smiled, sad and final. Goodbye, Jun Seok. I hope someday you figure out what you lost. But by then, it'll be too late. She walked out. The bell chimed, and Jun-suk sat alone in the empty cafe, surrounded by the ruins of everything he'd built, and realized she was right. He'd lost before he'd even understood the game. 3 months later, the prosecution moved faster than Jun-suk's lawyers could counter. Charges: embezzlement, bribery, money laundering. The evidence was airtight. Aaliyah's testimony, combined with Seo-rin's documentation, painted a picture of systematic corruption that even his family's connections couldn't wash away. He was arrested on a Tuesday. Perp walk, cameras flashing. The mighty dragon of Seoul in handcuffs. In detention, stripped of his designer suits and power, Jun-suk had time to think. Time to remember. Aaliyah handing him coffee at 6 a.m. because she knew he couldn't function without it. Staying late to proofread contracts, even though it wasn't her job. The way she'd smiled, rare, genuine, when he'd made an offhand joke. All the moments he'd dismissed as servitude were actually something else. Care, loyalty, love. And he'd thrown it away without even noticing. His lawyer negotiated a deal, 15 years, reduced to 7 with good behavior, in exchange for cooperation against his co-conspirators. Jun-suk signed. What choice did he have? But before sentencing, he made one request: to see Aaliyah. One last time. She came. He didn't expect her to, but she did. They met in a stark conference room, a guard standing watch. She looked different, lighter, like a weight had been lifted. Her hair was longer, natural curls framing her face. She wore a simple dress, nothing expensive, but she was radiant. "Thank you for coming," he said in English. His Korean felt wrong now, contaminated by everything it represented. "I almost didn't." She sat, keeping distance between them. "Why did you ask for me?" "To apologize." Aaliyah blinked. "For what, specifically?" "There's a lot to choose from." "For not seeing you, for treating you like you were invisible." He looked down at his hands, cuffed even here. "You said I never felt anything but greed. You were right. But in here, with nothing left, I realized something." "What?" "The only thing I had that was real, that was worth anything, was the way you looked at me before I destroyed it." His voice broke. "And I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry, Aaliyah." She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What you did to me, to Surin, to everyone you stomped on, that doesn't wash away with an apology." "I know. But," she met his eyes, "I appreciate that you finally see it. That means something." "Is there any chance?" He stopped himself. The question was selfish, but he asked anyway. "When I get out, in 7 years, would you ever?" "No." The word was final, but not cruel. "I've moved on, Jun-suk. I have a life now, a job I love, friends who actually see me. Maybe someday, someone who'll love me the way I deserve. He'll be lucky." "He will." She stood. "Take care of yourself. Learn something in here. Become someone different." "And if I do? If I become the man I should have been?" Aaliyah paused at the door. "Then maybe, in another life, we could have been friends. But in this one, we're done." She left. The guard escorted Jun-seok back to his cell. And for the first time since his arrest, he cried. Not for his lost empire or his ruined reputation, but for the woman who'd loved him when he didn't deserve it, and who'd walked away when he finally understood what he'd lost. 5 years later, prison changed Jun-seok. Not in the dramatic, Hollywood way, but slowly. Therapy mandated by the court, books he'd never had time to read. Conversations with other inmates who'd also fallen from grace. He learned humility, empathy, the skills that power had let him ignore. Letters came sometimes. His mother, cautiously rebuilding their relationship. Pak Sang-woo, who'd avoided charges and now ran a legitimate consulting firm. Even So-rin, once, a brief note saying she'd remarried, was happy and hoped he'd find peace. He never wrote to Aaliyah. That door was closed, but he thought about her, wondered where she was, if she was happy. Released after 7 years for good behavior, Jun-suk stepped into a soul that had moved on without him. His empire was gone. Hansum Financial restructured under new leadership. His assets liquidated to pay fines and restitution. He was starting over. 36 years old. No money beyond the small savings his mother had kept for him. No reputation. No power. Just a man trying to figure out who he was without all of it. He got a job teaching English to businessmen. Ironic, given his past. But the work was honest, and that mattered now. 6 months after his release, he was leaving class when he saw her, just a glimpse across a crowded Seoul street. Brown skin, natural hair, laughing with someone. Aaliyah. His heart stopped. She looked happy, truly happy, in a way he'd never seen when she'd worked for him. She was with a man, tall, kind-faced, holding her hand. Jun-suk could have called out, could have crossed the street, forced a reunion. Instead, he stood still, watched her laugh, saw the life she'd built without him, and he turned away. Some losses were permanent. Some damage couldn't be repaired. He'd learned that the hard way, but as he walked home to his small apartment, Jun-suk carried something new. Not peace, not yet, but acceptance. He'd been the villain in her story, the obstacle she'd overcome, and she'd won. She'd saved herself, destroyed his empire, and built a life full of the love and respect he'd denied her. That was justice. That was right. He couldn't give her those years back, couldn't erase the pain, but he could let her go, let her be happy without the shadow of what he'd been. So he did. And in that letting go, in that quiet moment of surrender, Han Jun-suk finally became the man he should have been all along. Too late to save what mattered. But maybe, just maybe, early enough to save himself. The cafe in Itaewon was small, tucked between a vintage clothing store and a bookshop. Jun-suk had discovered it months ago, quiet, anonymous, the kind of place where no one recognized him or cared about his past. He was reading when the door chimed. He didn't look up. Then a voice, achingly familiar. "Is this seat taken?" His head snapped up. Aliyah stood there, older now, small lines around her eyes that somehow made her more beautiful. She wore a coat against the autumn chill, her hair shorter than he remembered. "Aliyah," his voice came out strangled. "May I sit?" He nodded, unable to form words. She sat, ordered tea from the server in perfect Korean, then turned her attention to him. "You look different," she said. "I am different. I've been following your story, the teaching, the volunteer work with rehabilitation programs." She stirred her tea. "My friend's brother was in your class, said you were a good teacher, patient, kind." "I'm trying." "I can see that." She met his eyes, and he saw something there he couldn't name. Not love, but not hatred either. "I didn't come here by accident. I've been debating this for months, whether to reach out." "Why did you?" "Because 5 years ago, you apologized, and I said I didn't forgive you. But I've been thinking." She paused. "Forgiveness isn't about you deserving it. It's about me not carrying the anger anymore, and I don't want to carry it." Jun-suk's throat tightened. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "No, you don't, but I'm offering it anyway." She smiled, small and sad. "Not for you, for me." They sat in silence, sipping tea as the Seoul afternoon faded into evening. Finally, Aliyah spoke again. "I'm not offering friendship, or anything more. I've moved on. I'm engaged, actually." She showed him a simple ring. He's a teacher too, loves poetry, terrible at cooking. "Congratulations." And he meant it. "He's lucky." "He is." Her expression softened. "But I wanted you to know, I see what you're doing, the work to become better. That takes courage." "It's the least I can do." "Maybe, but it's still something." She stood, prepared to leave, then paused. "Jun-suk?" "Yes?" "In another life, if you'd been this person from the beginning, we could have been extraordinary together." The words broke something in him, not with pain, but with a strange, bittersweet peace. "I know. But this life isn't that one." "No, it's not." She left then. The bell chimed, and Jun-suk sat alone, not with rage or regret, but with something gentler. Acceptance. He'd lost her. He'd earned that loss through years of cruelty and blindness, but she was happy. She'd found love with someone who deserved her, and she'd freed herself from the anger that could have consumed her. That was enough. It had to be. As the cafe emptied and night fell over Seoul, Jun-suk opened his notebook and wrote, "Today I was forgiven, not because I earned it, but because she was strong enough to let go. That's grace. That's what I should have learned a lifetime ago. Better late than never." He closed the notebook, paid his bill, and walked out into the city that no longer feared him, where no one knew his name. And for the first time in years, maybe in his life, Han Jun-suk felt something close to contentment. Not happiness. That would take more time, more work. but the quiet knowledge that he was on the right path, that transformation was possible, that even those who'd fallen the farthest could perhaps find redemption. Not with her. That chance was gone, buried beneath years of mistakes he couldn't undo. But with himself, and maybe, someday, that would be enough.